Hey fam, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm recording this episode in my childhood bedroom. It's wild. We're saving to buy a house, and that's the life chapter we're in right now. And one of my core values is authenticity. So I wanted to share that so you knew if it sounds different, if it looks different, if the vibe is different, things are different. We've moved, no more office dungeon. I'm sitting facing a window. My phone is new and upgraded. And I am here to help you get shit done. Today, we're talking about probably one of my favorite things to talk about, which is the concept of not sleeping on your someday goals. I think this is something we are all super guilty of. And my intention today is to share a story with you, an example of how someone who had been dormant with this goal for years and years and years not only said it out loud, took action, and something really cool and powerful happened when this person took action. So I'm going to tell you all about that. I also have 4 specific tactical, because you know me, we like to get shit done over here. I have 4 tips for you to implement this into your business. And if you're listening in real time, it's the new year. I'm bringing new energy. I don't know about you, but I am in my empire era. I have big goals, big dreams, and I am bringing that energy to my coaching clients, all of the people in my networking communities. Everyone around me is just chasing big dreams, and I am here for it, and I want to help make that happen. So let's dive on in to the story to kick off the episode. I'm going to tell you about my girl, Stacy. Now, on paper, Stacy is a yoga teacher. She teaches online, which is super cool, virtually. I know she does a couple classes in person as well, but Stacy actually came to our Baja business retreat. If you've been here recently, I've been talking a lot about it because in real time, it's coming up soon. But that's not what the whole episode is about. The episode is about not sleeping on your someday goals because Stacy had a someday goal that she hadn't been working on actively for years. I can't remember the exact number of years. I remember at the time when she told us it was a lot. I want to say it was over 10. That might be an exaggeration, but many years went by where she had this dream, this goal in mind of hosting a retreat, a yoga retreat, but she never took action on it. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this, to recognize there may be a goal that you're sleeping on. You may have a someday goal that if you're real honest with yourself, you would love for this to happen. You just don't know how to make it happen, or something is holding you back. My goal with today's episode is to clear the fog for you, help you have a clear path forward, and ultimately help you take action on your someday goal. So Stacy comes to Baja. To give full context of this story, I had never met Stacy before. I met her once on a Zoom call, but I did not have a previous business relationship with her. She comes to Baja, and one of the things I challenged everyone to do was to pick one thing to focus on. I think so often you go to retreats, masterminds, coaching with lots of different things you want to tackle, and sometimes that can be really distracting. So I encouraged everyone to think of one thing to focus on. And for Stacy, she decided to focus on her someday goal, which was to host a retreat. So we spent 6 days focusing on the mindset work. We did yoga, we did surfing. Obviously, she's a yoga instructor, so that's her comfort zone. She's great at it. I remember watching her film content, but the meat and potatoes of the coaching side of things, we really focused on what needed to happen to take that idea off the ground. And here's what's wild, people. In Baja, she shared why she wanted to have this retreat. We identified it was the right move for her in her business. She shared what she would need to do and what she would need to delegate and what needed to happen. What were those clear next steps? And because she was around a room of other inspiring, get shit done women, she shared these goals and then she did it. Not only did Stacy host a retreat, and as we're recording, it hasn't happened yet, but I know it's coming up very soon. She sold out her first ever retreat. So prior to Baja, Stacy had an idea, a dream, a wish, a someday I'm gonna. And she left Baja with a game plan, and now not even a full year later, she has sold out her retreat and took action on that someday goal. And I share that story with you because odds are there's probably something floating around in your mind that someday you would like to get to. And I want to push back gently here because I want to ask the question why it hasn't happened yet. Is it because you don't know what steps to take? Is it because there's other parts of your business that need attention right now? Is it because that feels really far and out of reach? I think it's so important to recognize not only where we want to go, but identify what is blocking us from taking action. Because the truth is, we are taking action every day. And sometimes inaction is the action that we're taking every day. And it can distract us if we don't create a clear path forward. We don't have a process in place, and we don't clearly identify when and where things need to happen in order to achieve our goals. So I love Stacy. I love that she had this amazing aha and baha. That's our tagline for the group. But I think all of us could learn something from her, myself included. I'm going to get real honest here. If you're listening to this, odds are you may be in Washington State, which is where I'm based. You may not be, but I'm actually speaking at an event at the end of this month. And one of the someday goals, air quotes, that I had for myself was to be a keynote speaker of an event. And that is finally happening. And that someday goal I've had for years and years and years. And the dust settled. It was stagnant. It didn't make any moves until I started to put myself out there. I started to share that was my goal, and I got clear on what things needed to happen, what relationships I needed to build, what follow-up needed to happen in order for me to make that dream a reality. And now it's happening. So this stuff works, but there's an order of operations, something I'm saying a lot recently with my clients, maybe even on this podcast, but people around me, is this concept of like PEMDAS. I don't know if you remember math. I don't even know what math we learned this in, but I remember learning about PEMDAS. Like there's an order of operations when you're solving a mathematical equation. And I think the same applies to business. There's a certain order of operations that some things just need to happen in a certain way. But there's this other side of business where we have big goals and dreams. And if we don't create accountability, a process, and clear steps forward, it's not just going to happen to us. It's not just going to pick you up and like take you where you want to go. We have to be the ones. We have to be the Stacys who do the thing, who say it out loud, who says enough is enough. I'm taking action on this. And I just think we have a lot to learn from her. So I thought about this story. I thought about my own business, my journey with speaking, and if you're close to me, you know it's something I've been wanting to do more of anyways for years. And I think there's 4 specific things that can help you execute on these someday goals. And I'm going to give you a piece of advice going into the rest of this episode. Some of this stuff isn't sexy. Some of this stuff isn't some like new hack or special pill you take or anything. Odds are you're going to walk away from this episode being like, I kind of knew that. But my hope is you recognize that if you know what to do, it's just a matter of doing it. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, which is the 4 specific things I think all of us should do before we take action on a someday goal. Are you ready? The first one I have is this. Make sure your house is in order. If your someday goal is so big, so audacious, so different than what you're currently doing day to day in your business, the first thing you gotta do is make sure your house is in order. What does that look like? Are your bills paid? I know this sounds silly, but you would be surprised the number of people I talk to who are trying to add more and more and new to their plate, and their house is not in order. So there's no solid foundation to build off of. So step 1, make sure it's in order. Make sure the bills are paid. Make sure your processes make sense. Make sure you have a clear idea of what to do day in and day out in your business to move the needle forward. Make sure the demand is there. You know, I've been playing around with Threads lately, the new Instagram app, and one of the things I've seen on there is radical vulnerability, and I think it's so cool. I saw a business owner recently share how they're looking to get a second part-time job because their house is not in order, and I applaud this person for being so vulnerable to share that, because I think it's important we share things like that. But there are seasons in business, and sometimes that season is simply that, getting things organized, building a solid foundation. Guess what? If you're in that season, that's not the time to add something new to the mix. You won't know what works and what doesn't, and you will make decisions out of desperation because you have to eat, And that is not a great place to build off of. So number one, make sure house is in order. Number two is this, back to things being not sexy. You need to make sure this big someday goal aligns with your why and the big picture of where you want to go. I'm going to give you an example. A someday goal that I have is different now than it was when I had a hair salon. Prior to coaching, which is now going on 4 years, which is crazy, I used to have a hair salon. I had a goal of owning a wedding venue. If you asked anyone in my circle, clients, friends, family, they would all vouch for that and or just know that that was a goal of mine. My big picture goal was venue. I loved the idea of having space to bring people together. Now, you ask me what my someday goal is. It's not a venue. It's actually more of a co-working, networking event space that's multi-purpose. It's shifted because I've shifted, which is why you need to revisit your why in the big picture. And for me, my why has always stayed the same, ironically, but what has changed is how we get there. For a long time, when I first got into hair, I remember saying things like, this is what I meant to be doing. I've always thought I would do this. And like, I'm finally living out my purpose. Guess what, friends? I say the same thing now about coaching that I did then. And I think at the end of the day, the reason for that, for me at least, is because I know my why. And I was so obsessed with the how. I thought it had to be hair. And for this season of life, it has to be business coaching. You may come to me 5-6 years from now and that may change. But for now, my why and my big picture are like, it's like having the arrow line up with a target. Like it's so clearly defined in my mind where I'm headed and why I'm going that direction that it makes it a lot easier to take action. If your why is not defined, it's hard to know what's a yes and what's a no. If your big picture isn't defined, it's hard to know if you've ever achieved the goal or not, or if you're getting distracted. It's hard to hold yourself accountable. It's hard to take action and the right kind of action. So I encourage you, after you get your house in order, you make sure your bills are paid, you're serving clients you love, all the good stuff. Then number two, make sure that you're very clear on your why and your big picture. Those two things should be in alignment, and this big audacious goal that you have that you've been sleeping on should line up with that. For me, a big goal I have, a someday goal also, is to write a book. I totally see it happening. I don't see it happening right now, and I'm cool with it. If I were to focus my time and energy on writing a book, it would take away from all the other stuff I'm currently building. I would also argue I don't have the audience yet for a book that makes sense. So just because I have a someday goal that feels aligned, it aligns with the big picture of my why, which is to make impact, to help inspire people to take action so they can live an authentic life with purpose. That's my why. That's my why statement. All of this lines up, but that's not the PEMDAS. That's not the order of operation that makes sense next to my business. And I think as entrepreneurs, we can get distracted sometimes. We feel like that big someday goal needs to happen now. This is like a tangent, but needs to be said. Sometimes that someday goal needs to stay a someday goal. And I think the Stacy example, house was in order, bills were paid, she enjoyed the work she was doing, she had built the community and the audience that was looking for other ways to work with her. That's where the retreat made sense. And that's why I ask these deeper questions, because it's not just a matter of launching a retreat. You need to make sure you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. Then number 3, once it's passed the litmus test of those two things, your house is in order, your why is clearly defined, your big picture is clear, and all of that is teed up like swinging a golf ball, if you will. The number 3 is this: list out specific things that need to happen to get from A to B, where you're at today to launching this someday goal. And I remember I had Stacy do this. I had everyone in the group do this. What are the things you actually have to do? And those are different than the second category that I'm going to have you do. What are the things you need to learn? And I think it's so helpful to do this, and people don't do it enough. I know I can think of a client right now, a meeting I recently had with somebody who said this: I can't meet with you. We can't work on XYZ thing because I quote unquote need to figure out the finances. Not only does this person have to do something, but they also have to learn something, and they're lumping it together. And then they open up their laptop, they open QuickBooks, and they stare into the blank abyss of numbers because they haven't broken it up into bite-sized pieces. It's like trying to shove a Big Mac in your mouth. It's not going to work. So when you're thinking of taking action, and this applies to anything actually, but in this specific example, we're talking about those someday goals, but I really do think this applies to anything in business. Break out the task into two camps. What do you need to do, and what do you need to learn or research or figure out? And I think that just makes it so much easier in the delegation piece and the accountability piece. And that way, when you're like, okay, I have 2 hours right now where I can get some shit done, where do I start? You can pull from that list. You know, I actually have quiet time right now. I have my comfort water bottle. I have my headphones, my noise canceling headphones. Now's a great time to learn. I'm going to just YouTube a couple tips on hosting retreats because I'm in learning mode and that's where my brain is at right now. Versus doing mode. Those are different things. So give yourself the space in the process to execute on those two different things. And I promised there were 4 tips, right? The 4th one is probably going to be your least favorite. It's do it. Once your house is in order, once you know your why, and this big picture goal, this someday goal aligns with it, and now's the time and it makes sense, and you've clearly laid out, here's my to-do list, here's my to learn / figure out list, then you gotta do the thing. And here's the ugly truth. I can't do it for you. No one can do it for you. Especially if this is a new thing, newsflash, if this is a brand new thing to your business, like, I don't know, launching a podcast, this is not the time to hire a team and delegate and outsource. Unless you're like Ed Milet or Alex Hermosi and you have tons of money where you can throw at this new thing. If this is a new thing, you need to just buck up and do the work. And not enough people are saying that out loud, but it's true. For my podcast, you're listening right now. I am on, I want to say my third team of people editing. When I started my podcast, I uploaded it on GarageBand. I did it all myself. And it was messy and stressful and annoying. And I didn't have the free time. And I didn't enjoy doing it. I wasn't great at doing it. But I did it because I needed to know the systems. I needed to know what worked and what didn't. And I needed to just put in the work. At the end of the day, I think we so often are quick to delegate, and it's like this game of hot potato where you throw the thing to someone else, you hope they save the day for you, and then it ends up back in your lap. And when you're launching a new thing, it's like a baby. I can think of so many business owners I've worked with who are quote unquote multi-passionate. They're launching new things, whether that's podcasts, courses, workshops, flip houses, masterminds, retreats, all these other things, new. If house is not in order, and that's why I started with that, if your house is not in order or it's in conflict of your why, you're going to have a hard time being successful. And something that happens so often that I don't think we recognize is happening in real time is your existing business will suffer. It will pay the price. It will take away your time, energy, mindset, focus. And I've been guilty of this too, launching new stuff when I shouldn't have. I'm very open about that. But I just encourage you, if you have something in mind and it's that someday goal and it makes sense to explore, you've done all these other steps and you're ready to execute, I challenge you to do the most simple version to get it out. You can refine later. I was on a call today. On top of coaching, I run a community called Get Shit Done Club. If you haven't joined, you absolutely should. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an extension of this podcast. You can find it on Facebook. But in Get Shit Done Club today, there was a question about online signatures and taking payment. And this business owner is new, and advice in the group, someone mentioned HoneyBook, and I am a huge HoneyBook fan. Like, I can sing praises all day long. But I said, that's not what you need right now. Because you haven't even had someone go all the way through your clunky, duct tape together existing process. You don't even know what you need yet. So don't waste the time and money building this shiny new solution that sure in the long term will save you problem, but this isn't a huge time suck for you right now. So don't treat a problem anticipating what that problem will be, because you're going to waste time and money doing that. The best thing you can do, get a couple of clients, then get to a place where the income from those clients can pay for this solution, whether that's hiring, whether that is HoneyBook, whether that is finding another process or automation or tool to save you time and money. The issue right now is not time and money if you're new. I know that's a tangent, but I felt like I kind of had to share that. I think when we start to explore these someday goals, it's so exciting. It's so cool. And gosh, to be a Stacy and come up with a someday goal and all of a sudden sell it out, amazing. But I think the key to success here is this. It's the 4 things I just mentioned, making sure that everything else is stable and in order, making sure it aligns with your why in the big picture and it's not going to distract you from where you want to go long term. And then getting clear on what steps you have to take to get there. And then doing it. And I think what made this unique and why did Stacy go from sleeping on this goal to executing on it? I think it was the environment and the accountability. And that's hard to wrap your arms around because so much of us crave that. We just don't even know we need it, right? And I think that's how business works. So if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I do have a someday goal. I have something that, if I'm honest with myself, I'm sitting in those quiet moments. I'm journaling. I'm vision planning. I have a glass of wine and share, my deepest, darkest desires with my business bestie. If I'm honest in those moments, I want XYZ thing to happen, then I encourage you to reach out. This is exactly the stuff that I coach, not only in Baja, but in my coaching too. The best place to get information is my website. It's my maiden name, kelseymarieknudsen.com. In real time, this is Baja. This is exactly what we're doing there. We're 6 days together. There's something magical that happens when you're in an intimate setting like that. But I recognize this podcast lives past Baja. So maybe you're listening and you're catching up and Baja has already come and gone. There's plenty of other things I'm doing, and the best place to find information is my website. So visit kelseymarieknudsen.com. That's KNUTSON. And you can find out more ways to potentially work together or get some support in taking action on the someday goal. My intention today is this. I want you to feel inspired but focused. I think we live in a world where there's so many options, we're shown so many things, so many possibilities, so many types of support, ways to delegate, streamline, etc. But the reality is sometimes you just need to get a house in order. And I encourage you, if you're feeling the itch to chase something new, pause and reflect on these things first. And then if it passes the test, absolutely go running in that direction. Say it out loud. Post it in the Facebook group. Tag me on Instagram. Comment on the comment section of Apple Podcasts, wherever that may be, whatever place you can go find accountability, but go do the thing. No one can do it for you. And it starts with knowing what thing to do in the first place. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the new setup. Again, if you're watching this on video, we're on the YouTubes and we're focusing on growing the show. So I encourage you, if you found this valuable, to share it with your friends. Instagram's probably the best place to do that. You can find me also at Kelsey Marie Knudsen. And yeah, go do the thing. Go chase that goal, that dream that's sleeping, that's dusty, that's tired, that's redundant, that you keep saying over and over again, someday I'm gonna. No more someday. Today is someday. Let's make it happen.